Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back with another live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, March 12th, and we are starting at a very late 7:05 Central Time in the United States, which I can only really attribute to the clocks changing with the daylight savings time that happens in the US, and the fact that I stayed up most of last night, early morning, watching Jessica Jones season 2 while scheduling up videos to be released, which I did get that done, and then probably stayed up for 3 or 4 more hours to continue to watch season 2. Let's see. We don't have a great deal here. Mage. Need either 2 or 5. Can't even read that. Like 5 games of Paladin Warrior. How come that seems smaller today? Maybe I'm just not awake since I'm studying. A bunch of 2-cost things and mage things. I think what we can do real easily is play the Murloc if we have a problem here, and need that. We now know the next expansion is called the Witchwood, and there's a pretty decent pre-order bonus if you were willing to spend $50, where you get 50 packs plus 20 extra packs of I think all the new expansion, which honestly at 70 packs that makes me wonder if there's going to be slightly more cards in this next expansion. Plus, you get a free card back. So if I was going to spend money, that certainly would be a decent deal to think about. This is probably the first expansion where you could really go all in with the Asian and the European account. However, I don't have any intention of doing that. Let's start with mage class. Yeah, that works. A little mage ranked play with this. Let's see. Let's hope custom mage has mage cards in it, and let's go. A lot of pollen and allergens in the air today, apparently. I've got a lot of throat stuff that usually this is why I don't want to stream for at least the first hour after waking up. And I did wake up at about 6 p.m. and by the time I'd done any kind of setup or anything, it was already 7. So we're like 3 hours late, which kind of sucks. Also, nobody really seemed to hop on and chat or on my channel or go, hey, where is this? Which is fine. Like, I'm kind of glad to have slightly patient viewers instead of people going, hey, where's the stream? Where's the stream? But I know for a fact that if my channel ever becomes really big, that's exactly what's gonna happen. It happens with everybody. You're 5 minutes late and you get 1,000 messages. Where's the stream? Where's the stream? Which is a good thing. Not. It may sound like a bad thing, but the way I'm phrasing it. But no, it's actually a very good thing when people are excited and hyped and want to see your content to the point where they're complaining when it's even 5 minutes late. There's a slight story. Apparently, Sinrin Kagura Peach Beach Splash, which is now on Steam, has a jaw-dropping $370 worth of DLC. Just ridiculously large amount of expensive DLC, or just a large amount of DLC that is not even really that expensive. We've seen this too with like Galgun. What is it? Galgun Double Piece or Galgun 2, probably when it launches, we'll have a ton of DLC too. That seems like the new way the Japanese sex game or lewd game industry is going to try and nickel and dime its most loyal customers, which its most loyal customers are frankly used to being nickeled and dimed, so it's not that big of an issue. And it's certainly part of the reason why none of the real mainstream Western video game media is even bothering to report on it, is because they don't care about those type of games and don't want to promote them, to the point where they won't even report actual news, and because they just don't care. A game called Brave Neptunia has been announced. It's being developed by Quebec-based Artisan Studios. Let's see. Brave Neptunia is a 2D action game in the Neptunia series, developed by the first time by a Western company, Artisan Studios. Platforms were not announced, but Artisan Studios previously featured logos for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and Steam in the footer of its official website before its new project was updated to be revealed. Let's see. Further information will be announced April 26th. In apparently a magazine called Dengeki PlayStation. So almost certainly it's coming out for the PlayStation. I don't know if I really have that much news, actually. I did have my usual, I would say, amount of tabs open, but I don't know if too much happened over the weekend. So yeah, a new game was announced. It's one of those not very useful things. Mary Skelter 2 was announced for PS4. 3D Dungeon RPG sequel has been officially confirmed. I think we were talking about a game that was translated to Mary Skelter 2 already, but it was just last time I saw an article about it, it was under the Japanese name, or a different translation of the Japanese name. See if there's actually a trailer here. There's a couple pictures. It's a dungeon crawler. Do we have anything? PlayStation 4 is the only console it seems like they know it's coming out for. Wouldn't be surprised if it's the only one it is coming out for. It's really ridiculous I'm doing so well. After last stream, there was that rage-inducing game where I was very inarticulate because I was actually mad while I was losing this game that I totally should have won. That I decided, kind of as my continuing effort to bring in new viewers through clickbait, which has proven to be the only thing that YouTube's algorithm wants or rewards. After spending 4 years of particularly not trying to do clickbait, so I made a clip of that video and put it out there. Called it something like "This is why Hearthstone sucks," "Rage total fail," "Rage-inducing clip," things like that. It was certainly a not a planned moment, because if it was, I would have been more articulate about my problems with people playing the mage meta deck that always wins. Like, I saw another video that was probably recommended to me because of watching that video, with somebody who was much more articulate, who was a top tier level 1 like top tier legendary rank player, playing against somebody who played that mage meta game. And for the very first move that his opponent plays the quest that gives him 2 turns in a row, he said, well, I've lost, I can't win here. And he managed to cheat some way to beat it, but I mean, he didn't think he was going to succeed either. So even the best of the best players don't think they can win against that mage metagame, and that's not fun. Like, it's just not a balanced playfield. It's not fun for the person who wins either. They just want to win. They've lost the point where they were ever going to have any entertainment playing Hearthstone, and they're just playing a metagame to win. Which I imagine is the similar case for a lot of people at the highest ranks of Hearthstone, is that they have long since lost any desire or ability to have fun with any of their decks, and they just want to play and win for their streams, for their own ambition, for whatever reason. Let's just go ahead and hit this once. Yeah, you're probably gonna hear me cough quite a bit today. I kind of wonder if maybe I'm coming down with something, but I'm probably not. There's a game called Kiniro no Quarter 3 Full Voice Special and Kiniro no Quarter 3 Another Sky that are coming to the PS Vita. Ports of previously released visual novels. It's surprising that they're still making games for the Vita, but I mean, I suppose at this point they're both launching in Japan in 2018. Like, the only thing that could stop people from releasing visual novels on the Vita is if the Switch was hyper prevalent. I played in the wrong order. I totally played in the wrong order. Like, if the Switch was hyper prevalent and you literally could not get the parts to fix a Vita or keep a Vita running, and I don't think that's gonna happen ever, or anytime soon, at least. Let's do this. Let's see. Yeah, I guess going forward, looking at games, I'm gonna look at them a little bit before I even mention them. So a game came out March 10th called World Inside Out, March 10th, 2018. It's a platformer where the character and the whole world is kind of in black silhouette, and it looks like it's mostly just a platformer. And 96 of the 23 recent reviews are positive overall, according to Steam database. 79% are positive. It has Steam achievements. It is asking $1.19 right now at 40% off. Here's the thing, though. Like, here's a negative review. This worthless garbage is shovelware cell phone pre-made. Unity template asset pack. You can find it right here. Let's see. Jumping Shadows 2D runner, 90 levels. Well, I guess The fake developer does not know how to make video games, so they release other people's work as their own and slap their name on it. You shouldn't be surprised to find out you can actually download this game for free, but the actual real developer who made this game, it wasn't Sarge110 on the Google Play Store or iPhone Store. Well, so we've got what looks like an asset flip, and the developer and publisher is labeled as Surge110. And how many games does he have on the Steam store? Quite a lot. Quite a lot that have been released as far back as March 2017. And he hasn't been caught yet. Well, before speculations that the developer didn't really make this game and thus you shouldn't support him for that, I was gonna say this game looks pretty boring. Like, it looks just like a platformer where you jump and run and that's it. It doesn't look like anything like Super Mario Brothers where you have power-ups, or I don't even see any real enemies that walk or move. It looks more like an infinite runner where only the player is actually moving, and he may only be moving in one direction even. So yeah, I would suspect this is an asset flip, but ironically this is an asset flip that doesn't look horrible. So if this is the level of an asset flip, why do we see such terrible other games like that look way worse? Let's see. This is the card. The Sorceress of Princess. Too many of those ruins my day. There's a VR game for the HTC Vive called Epic Snow Day Adventure. It's kind of weird this came out March 9th. Because, well, I guess maybe they're getting into the late end of winter right now instead of waiting till next year when you would assume this would have been more of a Christmas thing. But seems like a wave-based tower defense where you're throwing snowballs at people. How does this actually work? Is a snowman. Apparently you can create snowmen that turn into real snowmen, and then you snowball fight other random kids, and you drink hot cocoa to refill your health, maybe. Like, they've really thought out some things here. You can throw snowballs to move your location. This is an interesting idea. Instead of having your typical shooting people style game, to twist it and turn it into a snowball fight. Certainly that's a VR game, so it's only for VR people, and frankly that doesn't matter too much to me. There's a game called Volatic that seems to be like a music creator simulator game thing. It looks very weird. It just like little balls hitting little discs, bouncing around in a 3D space. Nobody has reviewed it. It came out March 10th. Mario Day, it's early access and it requires a VR headset. This looks too complicated, frankly. It doesn't make sense to the visual of what it's supposed to be. Like, I saw a preview video of this quote-unquote game. I guess it's not even really a game, and I didn't even know it was a music creator because of the way it looked. Let's see. PC Gamer has an interesting article. Moving on, called "Tested semicolon de nouveau DRM has no performance impact on Final Fantasy 15. Durante puts Final Fantasy 15 through its paces to see if the DRM really slows games down." I think inherently you can't ever prove that it doesn't, because there is like probably a scenario where it will, where if you only had one core on your processor and that one core was being used to play the game, then that core would take cycles out to also run the DRM. You cannot, as far as I've heard, Denuvo does not disable itself on computers that are incredibly performing, or has fewer numbers of cores, or has a lower clock speed. And so there's no way you can ever argue that any program running ever isn't affecting your performance. Speaking of performance, I did install the very large Final Fantasy benchmark to see what I could do. My video card is not the hottest ever as far as running at the most ultra settings at 1080p, but I imagine I was doing alright to run at high settings if I was going to play Final Fantasy 15. More than likely, I won't get to Final Fantasy 15 until it's more of a finished product, because they're talking about adding things and changing sections, and I probably won't ever get to it anyways. But I'm about to lose. That's alright, it doesn't matter if I win or lose right now. Yeah, I might get to Final Fantasy 15 after I have a whole new computer, at least a new video card, whenever video cards become reasonably priced again. But the DRM for Denuvo, the anti-tampering software, actually it's not even DRM. They just keep calling it that. Has already been cracked for Final Fantasy 15, so I don't really see a reason why you would want it in your software. Scrolling down here. Let's see. Durante says here he tested 3 scenes: early morning in the field with all the foliage, the initial location after the intro where you first start playing the game, scene 2, evening at a resting spot cooking during cooking, scene 3, and then the frames per second on a 4.1 gigahertz processor look relatively consistent with only minor differences. Well, he'll skip down to conclusion on his conclusion. I'm personally against DRM since I consider both the preservation and modability of games to be incredibly important. It says, number one, there's no support for the data for the idea that de novo affects in-game performance negatively, even in the worst case scenarios, and regardless of CPU speed. De novo might increase load times by a small factor of about 6.7% in its implementation in Final Fantasy 15. Okay, so here's the problem with this. He is testing the de novo removed version of the demo versus the de novo embedded version of the release version. And he is not including any consideration whatsoever for bug fixes and improvements that would have happened between the demo, which may have been made gold months earlier, ahead of the release version. So this is just flawed science. That's kind of ridiculous. One of the things to take away also is Durante is now, like, he was this beloved name in PC modder who did Dark Souls mod DS Fix, but then he's also now working for video game companies, so I don't want to say something as simple as he sold out and may just be a mouthpiece for the video game. Some video game companies or industries, but he's kind of sold out and is now a mouthpiece. Much as PC Gamer, the people who publish this article, are a mouthpiece for the video game industry. But ignoring all of this is just junk science. Like, you can't compare apples to oranges and then say you've learned anything at all. That we need to wait until there is a day one release version of Final Fantasy 15 with de novo that can be compared to a de novo removed day one release version. That way we know for a fact the only thing that's been disabled, the only thing that's been changed is the de novo. Anyways, moving on. Wow, already talked about that. I'm already running into reruns. I retweeted this. The Tomb Raider games are getting free remasters on Steam, and in a weird way, it's kind of not because of Square Enix as it seems. So apparently, and I am assuming this is all on the up and up, a company called Realtek was in charge and allowed, I assume, to make the first 3 Tomb Raiders run on cell phones, make mobile versions of Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3. Beloved but ancient, kind of unplayable games by today's standards. Unplayable, one, because they need like Windows XP or DOS, and also unplayable because they look horrible and they don't run well, and frankly they're not going to be that good. I'm really wondering if I would ever be able to actually try this out and do more than a spotlight, because I haven't played Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3, but you also have to recognize that those games are so old that there's kind of a reason why you wouldn't play them. Anyways, Realtek made mobile ports, cell phone versions of that game, using some of the DOS assets, some of the skins, I imagine, and like level maps. It probably, since those games are so old, it's probably not cryptic at all. It's probably very simplistic files that you could interpret very easily, and you just need to build a new and hopefully better engine to run the game data files. In a similar way, you probably could make a better Doom engine, the original Doom game, to play all the old Doom WAD files and make everything run smoother and look nicer. But because they did that, and I'm assuming this is with Square Enix's blessing, they're going to port their engine basically to PC and give it to everybody who owns these games on Steam. So you actually have to own Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3, which is not hard to do if you've ever bought like the Tomb Raider collection, which isn't a terrible way to do it, or if you bought the entire Square Enix bundle, then you would also own them. But for the most part, I'd say if you wanted to get it right now, there's probably at least one, if not two or three Tomb Raider collections out there that you can get that will get you a copy of Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 in setup for this new engine, this free upgrade to come and use those files. It seems that that's a weird way to do it. You would think if they were doing this without Square Enix's blessing, they would have been sued by now. But then you're also not really getting Square Enix's blessing by being able to re-release the original files. So it kind of makes you think that you could probably, if you had Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3, and you didn't get it on Steam, you could probably just put it in the Steam apps folder and then get this new engine to and it would still work. But right now they are very much tying it to owning the game on Steam. So if you bought it on some other store, it's not gonna work. I've seen videos of their new engine, and last time I saw these, I thought they were just fan mods. Now it seems like it's actually an actual company. And it looks good, but don't expect miracles. Like, you're still going to have some very awkward tank controls. This is not the remake that was called Tomb Raider Anniversary. This is just the first 3 games. PlayStation 1 era games running. This is not new skins. You're still getting the low pixel count of Lara Croft. Yeah, I saw a if I use the phrase edgelord, will people know what I'm talking about? A guy trying to create controversy, basically complaining about the breast size of the new actress in the latest Tomb Raider movie. I guess now I need to play Paladin and Warrior. Which, to be fair, even compared to the bust size of the character in the remake, which is much more realistic and smaller than the old game, where it, relatively speaking, was really huge. Like, I would say she is easily an E cup, maybe a D cup in the old games, and they got her down to a more reasonable C size, I would say, in the remakes. In comparison, I would say that that the actress they got is barely a B cup, and that may not seem that big, but it kind of does. It certainly probably was a consideration in a conversation, part of the conversation when they hired the actress. But I mean, it certainly doesn't really matter. It's the dumbest thing ever. The whole cup size of Warcraft issue is only an issue because they just rendered her like too oddly. It's the female equivalent of Mario's nose. You know, Mario had a mustache in the original game so that you would see it had a nose, and they just continued down the way of animating him to have a nose to the point where they screwed up at some point, and now Mario has a big round nose and doesn't look like a human at all. Let's see. I'm trying to really win now. Let's see. Moving on, Fortnite Battle Royale will add loot llamas next week, plus Xbox One crossplay is coming to the future. I believe Fortnite Battle Royale is also going to have mobile crossplay. So yes, they've already announced that crossplay will happen between PC, iOS, Macintosh, which Macintosh Apple computers now run iOS, I thought, so that's the same thing. I guess they just want to differentiate and let people really understand and know that they mean the Apple computers, not just the Apple cell phones. PlayStation 4, and later on it's going to have Android and Xbox One, wasn't mentioned. So, Xbox One is coming in the future too. So they're going to get every single platform that they have working together and playing against each other. And I think they're probably going to find out that that is a bad way to go. Because it's always been an issue. It doesn't get talked about too much, but the mouse and keyboard advantage of good players with like higher frame rates, bigger screens, and faster input devices, that usually mouse and keyboard PC players can beat anybody, generally speaking, that's playing on a console. And that's why for many, many years we would have a division between consoles playing on one server and PC gamers playing on the other server. But the new way of handling that is pretty much just to let people on consoles play and lose, and just make it a fair play field on one side, and say, hey, if you've got better skills, if you've got faster internet, if you've got a bigger screen, if you've got mouse and keyboard input, and you can, I believe, or you should be able to very soon, plug a mouse and keyboard into like an Xbox One. I'm not sure if you can do that with a PlayStation 4, so that stops being as much of an issue. Let's see, how are we going to actually win here? I don't think we are. Well, at the very least, we can play minions that cost 2 or less. Next story, PUBG's latest anti-cheat update is causing crashes and wild FPS fluctuations for some people, some players. The quote here is, "We will not be removing our recent patch in order to keep blocking cheats effectively." I think you inherently have to take that ruling, but this is clearly an example of them not testing the software enough. Because if for even a second you removed the latest version of a anti-cheat software, you would make it incredibly easy for people to know how to always remove your anti-cheat software. So you do have to go forward. PUBG is still very much a mess of lots of cheaters, and it's going to drive away its community as soon as they find something new to switch to. Fortnite Battle Royale may have already determined itself to be the next big thing because of that. Let's see. Do I want to play casual or do I want to actually get to rank 20 this season? Like, how are we? Today's the 12th. We're halfway through the month. And I really wonder, will I even be able to make it to rank 12? Rank 20. Yeah, it'd be nice to get to rank 12. Like, ever since this new ranking system came in, it seems like matchmaking has not improved but gotten worse somehow. And I have no idea how that could have happened. But that's totally what it feels like. Like, it's now even more difficult to go up. And maybe that is just by the number of stars, or maybe that is because something else changed. PC Gamer has an article, what game would you like to see made into a film or TV show? With the Witcher Netflix series on its way and another Tomb Raider movie, here's what we'd like to see. So, personally, I don't want to see any of it. Like, I don't see a real reason why I'd want any game turned into a TV show unless I felt like the game didn't succeed very well at being a game. Something like Her Story and Myst, I guess, are good examples of games that aren't really that much of a game, so they would succeed potentially better by just telling their story instead of having gameplay elements. A lot of the walking simulator style games also would make a lot of sense to not be to not be games, but instead be some other format, movies or things. If we can conveniently ignore almost every anime game out there because there probably was a manga, TV series, or movie based on it already before it became a game, or there will be one sooner or later, so you don't even have to talk about those, which frankly we do talk about them a lot because there's a lot of them out there that don't get talked about by the Western media too much. Man, I need to quit saying the Western media, but when it's appropriate, I guess I have to. So, some of the Assassin's Creed games, like, well, could be, I would say they could be merged into fewer games. I'm not sure I would argue that they should be made into movies. They did make an Assassin's Creed movie and it didn't succeed. So I don't see how that would prove itself to be the right move. PC Gamer, one of their writers, says a Silent Hill anthology show. The problem I would say with that is anthology shows have not worked, in my opinion, for a long time. The Twilight Zone is the epitome of anthology sci-fi horror shows, and the reason they succeeded is because there was a firm and heavy commitment to hiring and paying and having good writers. Once that falls out, which is pretty much the case now, is writers are not respected in TV and movies at all. Movies want to be safe bets. TV wants to be reality TV shows that are cheap to make. Once you don't have good writers, you just don't have good anthology series. And I've seen several anthology movies on Netflix. I've seen several attempts to do anthology things. I've watched all of Black Mirror and not liked pretty much any of Black Mirror. The argument certainly could be made that anthology series in general just don't don't have any new territory to cross because of because everybody has already done it before. Even like the Orville uh, does an interesting thing where they mostly rip off old Star Trek shows. Like, it's a parody of Star Trek that is mostly ripping off Star Trek storylines that have already happened, so that they don't really even have to write anything new. And they do it well, and sometimes they put a different twist on things, but for the most part, it's just episodes of Star Trek you've already seen. So I'm not sure there's actually room for too much more new sci-fi stuff. Not until we get some new ideas out there. And if you were gonna do something in Silent Hill has some consistent issues that would have to be reinforced over and over again. Like, you would have to show Pyramid Head nearly every 3 episodes. I don't think you get away with making a Silent Hill anthology series without Pyramid Head showing up rather regularly. You would have to have the creepy horror styling throughout every episode, which would get boring and repetitive. You really can't tell too many different stories. Of the anthology of Silent Hill video games, the stories are pretty consistent. You're somebody who ends up in Silent Hill. You're usually a guy who usually has some kind of sexual perversion that brings in the nurses and brings in the twisted sexuality that are prevalent in most of the Silent Hill games. Like, because as I understand it, Silent Hill is more of a depiction of what you bring into it. So if the monsters are there specifically because of the person that's there, so yeah, I just don't think that would work. Tom Sr. says BioShock. By the way, there have been Silent Hill movies. There have been at least 2 Silent Hill movies that didn't succeed. So when you're talking about what would you like to see made into a film or TV show, and you say a Silent Hill, not only are you showing your ignorance because they were made into movies, you're just showing a lacking of understanding of how TV series and movies would work. Next person wants BioShock. BioShock potentially could be made into a trilogy of movies, I would say, but I don't think you do a TV series on it either, because there has to be this continuing storyline, and anybody who's played BioShock or seen somebody play BioShock, seen me play BioShock, already knows that there's an ending there. There's 2 endings there. There's actually 3 endings to BioShock when you actually think about it. I have a feeling I just made it easier for his Antonitis to pull his BS move. So, yeah, you could do... There were 3 games. You could do 3 movies just set in the first game. You could do 3 movies set in all 3 games. I don't think you can make a TV series out of it, which is what I believe... Next thought was the same person... no, a different person saying BioShock, but it's a situational comedy. And I think you're just getting crazy then. Like, setting a sitcom in an unknown universe in a weird world doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm thinking something like the TV show Dinosaurs, which was fair enough, a pretty funny sitcom. It still was very much grounded around your classic at the time family situational comedy. BioShock, I don't know how you do that at all. It would be like trying to set a sitcom in the middle of World War One or World War Two, where there's just people outside of your off screen, outside of your house, constantly attacking and trying to kill people. So I think somebody here at least realized that this was a ridiculous desire in the first place, and to try and say, which games would you like in the TV and movie, so they just joked about it. We're in a weird position. I guess I only needed to get 2 things done, so there's really no reason to do this. So let's switch over to the European account. Like, since we started late, it makes a lot of sense to try and speed things up. I don't want to stay playing this all the time. PUBG or Fortnite as a reality show, you can't have that. But there actually was a show that was sort of like this on British TV, where you would play with paintball and you'd be given scenarios and you would try to shoot. Part of the problem with why it didn't succeed, however, is because of the fact that people just weren't that good. Like, people were just not that good at shooting and avoiding getting shot with paintball, and it did not play well to a narrative story to have random people put on all this paintball armor, get shot in the first 2 minutes of every level, and then just move on. I guess with Druid and Rogue, let's see if we got anything Druid or Rogue that would win. Let's try this. Combo spells, rank 22. When you just even get away from PUBG and Fortnite and think about, there was a short time on ESPN, and maybe every now and then they still show it, where they were showing competitive paintball. Before esports was a big thing, they thought competitive paintball was going to be the next big thing. And it just doesn't really work. It's just kind of boring, like all other sports shows. Too many people get shot too early. How do you do a health bar? How do you determine when somebody's been hit or not? There's just a ton of little problems that get solved in the video game format that aren't solved in the real world format. Continuing with the general bad idea, the next suggestion is Team Fortress 2, and any game that is just built around shooting, it doesn't make sense. Here's the real silly argument here is, any one of these games could and are being made into TV series on YouTube, and that's the weirdness here, is these are effectively made into YouTube TV shows. That's what a Let's Play is, for the most part. And in the examples of PUBG and Fortnite and Team Fortress 2, there's a lot of replay in the esports community to play those games over and over again, without trying to throw into it some bigger element of storyline or plot that tries to make it more of a episodic experience. Next suggestion is Dishonored. Dishonored's storyline is actually built heavily around its levels. if it weren't for the fact that the game needed you to play the game more, you actually would have not done too much. Let me see if I can rephrase that. Like, if the game didn't need you to go from point A to point B in a level, if it didn't need you to go to the level, the basic story of Dishonored is Corvo gets blamed for a murder and for the assassination of the queen, and he's trying to rescue the queen's daughter, the princess, from being controlled by oligarchs and other people who have taken the throne, usurpers to the throne. And that's, for the most part, the story in the high chaos run. It might be slightly different in the low chaos run, if you can get that low chaos ending, which seems to me to be pretty impossible to get without being very good. If you just boil that down, it's a standard Taken story. Like, it is the movie Taken, set in a fantasy world that's being overrun by a plague and has a magical character who doesn't really explain himself or have much of a reason for existing, so he wouldn't get too much play, I imagine, at all. Let's see. There we go. So, yeah, I don't know what... What more you would get out of Dishonored to make it a TV series. You might make a 2-hour movie out of it. Here in the comments they said they should make an anime out of Dragon Ball Fighters. Somebody recommends a game called The Final Station. I don't know about that game, so I can't really say anything. Somebody says Knights of the Old Republic. Very fair argument there. Take half the stories from half of the Star Wars games. You can make more Star Wars content. But nearly every one of these suggestions is a bad suggestion. It shows that critics don't know what they're talking about when they think they know what they want. Like, I don't know how to say that any nicer than that. Honestly, like I know, and I did, frankly. I watched Jessica Jones season 2 last night, and then I wrote up on my personal Facebook a review of it and how I felt like it has some major issues that all the Netflix series have had issues with, and Jessica Jones season 1 was kind of immune to that since it was the first one, but then all the other Netflix Marvel series have had too many characters. The scenes are awkward. There's too many plot lines. There's way too many plot lines for one season in Jessica Jones season 2. Just some really odd things, odd decisions. I think a big problem is that they let different directors direct different episodes. That causes some slight inconsistency. But my point there is not to just read out, say my criticism of Jessica Jones. My point there is, while I know I can criticize a media and say what I saw in it I liked and I don't like, I also know my limitations well enough to know I could not make anything better. If I tried to make anything, it'd be worse. I think people who love video games made their video games and told their stories that way. I don't think that there's a ton of writers who have a story pitch that they couldn't get made into TV or film, so they just sold it to video games. Or there's a ton of writers in the video game industry that have a story and pitch that they would have preferred it to be a movie, but they or they would prefer it to have been something else. Like, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe there is some crossing there where some stories were originally designed for a different media, but none of the... I'm really trying to struggle here to think if any game would be good alone as a TV or movie instead of a game, and I can't think of many. Final Fantasy, that would probably have been a fine TV series. The later Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy 15 for instance, because that barely is a game from their perspective. It is mostly about collecting scenes and telling story, and then the grinding is just added extra elements. Things like that. Walking simulators make sense that probably could have been done in a TV or short film, short story type scenario. There's probably a lot of this comes from the concept that I have, that there should be a nesting order of how media is made, and you should write a short story or script in the first place and then polish it off enough to the point where it gets made into a comic book or manga, and then polish that a little bit more to the point where it gets to a anime or a TV series, and then polish that a little bit more to the point where it gets to a movie, and then polish that a little bit more to the gets to the point where it's a video game. And in my head, the nesting order is video games are the most interactive. Maybe even VR is above regular video games there, but I'm not sure VR is going to catch on. But video games are the most interactive, the top of the tower content. So it makes no sense in my head for something that made it to a video game, even if it skipped all those previous steps, to go back and be a lesser step. I, in a similar way, don't understand why some of these Star Wars cartoons are cartoons and not Star Wars movies or Star Wars TV series in live action. But I guess a lot of that just has to do with them targeting kids. Which is going to be weird because now they have announced that they're developing a Star Wars TV series. And that'll be certainly interesting to see. We've got somebody on the chat going, wrong. You're going to have to be more descriptive if you want to disagree with me, because I said a lot in a short amount of time. So, like, don't write just one word per chat message. Right? You're totally wrong about X. You're totally wrong about this because, if you want to have a conversation. Yeah, right. Let's see. Clearly, you have not paid proper attention to the... Alright, well, this guy's gonna get blocked because he is talking... Let's see. Talking gibberish. Some kind of spammer. Just classic spam technique, you know. Tell somebody they're wrong to try to get them in, and then just talk gibberish. Well, we've already gone about an hour, so now is a good time to break up this recording. Stay tuned if you're watching live, As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.